All right. Hi, everyone. Let's talk about burnout, what it is, what are some questions you could ask yourself to see if you are burned out. Before we get started, I just want to take a small detour into diagnosis. So I am a licensed psychologist, able to see folks with my online practice in Pennsylvania and Florida. And so I learned how to diagnose and use the DSM. And for some folks, it's very important, to know kind of where to start treatment. I know sometimes that diagnosis, that label can bring a lot of relief to folks if they're not sure what's going on. But at the same time, labels can be very stifling and can be stigmatizing. So I just wanted to put that out there, that my personal philosophy is I understand that diagnosing has a purpose, it can be beneficial, but for the most part, I'm not in love with doing it. And so with that being said, let's talk a little bit about burnout. It's not in the DSM, but I know that there has been some movement with making it an official disorder, though, mostly with work-related burnout. So kind of saying like related to your job or your career or your profession, you can be burned out. But nevertheless, I feel like folks can take stock in what's going on in your life and how you're feeling, and use the questions I'm getting ready to share to, kind of take a look and see what is going on. What needs to change, where are we at? Because burnout is very similar to depression in some ways. It's very similar to anxiety disorders in some ways. And of course, a lot of us are stressed, right? And feel stressed out. And that term is absolutely, a good way to describe feeling overwhelmed and just too much going on. And of course, with everything in the world, the last year, but even beyond that, right? It's kind of like, who is not stressed out? And so I want to share some questions to maybe help tease apart, is this stress? Is this daily life? Or is this maybe more burnout? And so, are you feeling tired or exhausted? Almost always, even if you've had a full night's sleep, even if you had 6 to 8 hours or more of rest, are you still feeling exhausted? Are you feeling guilty that you aren't spending enough time with your friends or with your family or even just with yourself? So is there guilt that you're not spending your time and energy in the way you would like to? Do you find yourself becoming really emotional, like more than how you usually experience emotion? So feel, like getting really angry really fast, crying more often than you personally usually cry, shouting, feeling tense and you can't immediately figure out why you feel tense, and holding your breath, maybe not even realizing you're holding your breath. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I've been tensing my shoulders, or I've been holding my breath and I didn't even realize it. Have you been more often becoming angry or resentful about your work, or about your colleagues, or about your clients, depending on what your career is? Have you gotten sick more often? Have you been having stomach aches, headaches, getting a cold, right? Sinus infection. Is your body really kind of reacting in that way? Do you find yourself kind of dropping the ball on some of your commitments, or forgetting things you don't usually forget, right? So small things of did you write that in your calendar? Or, ooh, I forgot to call that person back, or, kind of the small things falling through the cracks. Have you been being kind of short or rude with people more often, or maybe you didn't usually do that? Have you been feeling distracted, disconnected, especially from things that you used to love, hobbies or things that used to feel really fun and exciting? Maybe they just feel blah, or too much of a hassle right now. Are you constantly working or overworking? And again, I know that is totally rewarded in our society, and rewarded. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you work for someone else, overworking is typically absolutely rewarded. But do you find yourself doing that, working way more than usual or what you're contracted to? Are you finding it hard to switch off and take regular breaks? That your mind is just still running through the to-do list, or, running through what you need to do, whether it's at home or at work. And are you not really wanting people to know how overwhelmed you're feeling? Is there kind of a sense of shame or sort of wanting to hide it, and kind of say like, no, I got this, and kind of put on that tough, I can handle it. Or are you kind of like, I'm overwhelmed, and yes, maybe everything looks good on paper to the outside world, but I'm exhausted, I'm feeling crushed inside. So if any of those resonate with you, or a handful of those resonate with you, then it could be leaning more from regular daily stress of just living in the modern world to maybe being burned out. And so definitely check out the other videos here in the blog area of the website. I talk a lot about self-care and what can be done, but also kind of where this came from, and that burnout is not your fault. All right, take care, everyone.